The recruitment officer's secondary appendages twitched with barely suppressed amusement as he reviewed the application on his data slate. Officer Kelvin Thrain of the Galactic Security Corps had seen thousands of applications in his 40 cycles of service, but this one was different. This one was hilarious. "Let me understand this correctly," he said, his vocal synthesizer translating his clicks and whistles into standard Galactic. "You want to transfer from the Human Resources Department to the Monster Division?" The human female standing before his desk nodded once, sharp and confident. Her name was printed clearly on the transfer request: Olivia Fletcher. She stood at what the humans called 5 feet and 6 inches, which was laughably small by galactic standards. Her brown hair was pulled back in a functional knot, and her dark eyes met his with an intensity that made Kelvin's dermis prickle uncomfortably. "That's correct, sir," Olivia said, her voice carrying that peculiar human accent from the region they called Boston. "I believe my skills would be better utilized in active field operations." Kelvin's mandibles clicked together in what any species would recognize as barely contained laughter. The Monster Division was where the Galactic Security Corps sent its most elite hunters to track down the galaxy's most dangerous criminals, rogues, and creatures. It was where Vraxian berserkers patrolled, where Klendathi hive minds coordinated devastating strikes, where Thoraxian apex predators used their natural advantages to hunt prey across star systems. It was not where you sent someone from Human Resources who spent her days filing grievance reports and organizing team-building exercises. "Miss Fletcher," Kelvin began, trying to inject some gentleness into his tone, "the Monster Division is extremely dangerous. The mortality rate in the first standard year alone is 43%. The creatures we hunt are not metaphorical monsters. They are literal threats to galactic civilization. Some of them can tear through starship hulls with their bare appendages. Others can manipulate matter at the molecular level. And you want to leave a comfortable office job to chase them?" "Yes, sir." No hesitation. No doubt. Just those 2 words delivered with absolute certainty. Kelvin leaned back in his chair, which groaned under his considerable weight. He pulled up her file with a gesture, watching the data scroll across his slate. Olivia Fletcher, age 28 by human reckoning. 3 years with the Galactic Security Corps, all of them in administrative positions. Performance reviews were glowing. Her supervisor noted she had an unusual ability to mediate conflicts between wildly different species. She had once talked down a Vraxian who was about to disembowel a Keldrathi over a parking space dispute. Impressive, but not exactly combat credentials. "Your file says you have no combat training," Kelvin noted, scrolling through the records. "No weapons certifications, no tactical experience whatsoever." "That's not entirely accurate, sir." Kelvin's primary eyes focused on her, while his secondary eyes continued scanning the file. "Oh? Please, enlighten me." "Before I joined the Corps, I spent 6 years as an emergency dispatcher in Detroit. That's a city on Earth. I handled everything from domestic disputes to hostage situations to active shooter scenarios. I learned how to stay calm when people are screaming. I learned how to read situations and people faster than any computer algorithm. And I learned that the most dangerous monsters aren't always the ones with the biggest teeth. Kelvin's amusement faded slightly. There was something in her tone, something hard and cold that didn't match her small frame or her administrative background. "I see," he said slowly. "And you think those skills translate to hunting creatures that can crush you without thinking twice?" "I think those skills translate to not getting crushed in the first place," Olivia replied. "Sir, with respect, I've read the incident reports. I've processed the casualty notifications. I've seen what happens when hunters charge in thinking their superior strength or weapons or natural advantages are enough. The successful hunters are the ones who think, who adapt, who understand their prey. That's what I do. That's what humans do better than almost anyone in the galaxy. We improvise, we adapt, we overcome. Kelvin felt a chill run through his carapace. She was quoting the human military motto, and she meant every word of it. He should reject this application. He should send her back to her nice, safe desk, where she could continue her stellar career in administration. The paperwork alone to transfer her would be a nightmare. And when she died in the field, which she almost certainly would, there would be an investigation, and someone would point to this moment and ask why he approved such an obviously terrible assignment. But there was something about her, something in those dark human eyes that reminded him why his species had learned to fear humans in the first place, back in the early days of contact. Humans were persistence predators. They didn't have claws or venom or armored hides. What they had was stubbornness, an absolute refusal to quit, a willingness to adapt and improvise that bordered on insanity, and an uncanny ability to turn any situation to their advantage if you gave them enough time. "Fine," Kelvin said, immediately regretting the word even as it left his vocal synthesizer. "I'll approve your transfer, but I'm assigning you to Team 17. They handle the lower priority cases. If you survive 6 months, we'll reassess." Olivia's face split into a smile that showed far too many of those flat human teeth. "Thank you, sir. You won't regret this." Kelvin absolutely knew he would regret this. 3 days later, Olivia reported to the Monster Division headquarters on Station Gamma 9. The facility was a sprawling complex of reinforced corridors and high-security zones designed to contain anything from rogue AI to psychotic telepaths. She checked in at the main desk, received her equipment locker assignment, and was directed to meet her new team in Conference Room 7. She arrived early, which was a habit ingrained from her years in dispatch. Never be late. Never give anyone a reason to doubt your reliability. The conference room was standard Galactic issue, with adjustable seating for various body types and a holographic display table in the center. Olivia chose a human-sized chair and waited. Her new teammates arrived in a cluster, talking among themselves in a mixture of languages and body language that Olivia's translator struggled to parse. There were 5 of them, not counting her. The first through the door was a Vraxian named Gorath, standing nearly 8 feet tall with deep purple skin and muscles that looked like they'd been carved from stone. His species were famous for their berserker rages and incredible physical strength. He took one look at Olivia and snorted, which the translator rendered as disdainful laughter. Next came a pair of Keldrathi, their insectoid bodies moving with eerie synchronization. They introduced themselves as Tix and Vex, scout specialists who could navigate environments that would kill most other species. They regarded Olivia with their compound eyes, mandibles clicking in what might have been curiosity or concern. The fourth member was a Solvathi named Priya, a serpentine being with scales that shifted through various shades of green and blue. She was a toxicologist and infiltration expert, capable of squeezing through impossibly small spaces and delivering venoms that could incapacitate almost any known life form. She nodded politely to Olivia, but said nothing. The team leader was Commander Rax, a Thoraxian who resembled a bipedal wolf crossed with a bear, covered in mottled gray fur and possessing claws that could rend metal. His species were apex predators who had been spacefaring for over 10,000 years. He looked at Olivia with yellow eyes that had tracked prey across 100 worlds. "You're the human," Rax said, his voice a low growl that made Olivia's spine straighten instinctively. "The one transferring from human resources." "Yes, sir. Olivia Fletcher, reporting for duty." "This is a mistake," Gorath rumbled, crossing his massive arms. "No offense to humans, but you're fragile. Weak. You'll slow us down at best, get yourself killed at worst. Probably get some of us killed trying to protect you." Olivia had expected this. She'd dealt with enough difficult personalities in her administrative career to recognize posturing when she heard it. "Then don't protect me," she said simply. "If I can't keep up, leave me behind. If I get myself killed, that's on me. But I'm here, I'm assigned to this team, and I'm going to do my job. So we can either spend the next 6 months fighting about whether I should be here, or we can focus on hunting monsters. Your choice." The room went silent. Gorath's eyes narrowed, but he didn't argue further. Rax's ear twitched, which Olivia's research suggested was a sign of approval among Thoraxians. "All right then," Rax said, activating the holographic display. "We have our first assignment with our new team composition, a relatively simple tracking mission. There's a smuggler operating out of the Tertian belt. Goes by the name Slicks. He's a Novarian, which means he's fast, smart, and slippery. He's been moving illegal bioweapons across 3 sectors. We need to find him, capture him, and bring him in for interrogation." The hologram showed a being that looked like a cross between an otter and a lizard, with sleek scales and an elongated body built for speed. His file listed dozens of close calls with security forces across the galaxy. He had a reputation for always being 1 step ahead of his pursuers. "Why do they call this a monster case?" Olivia asked, studying the image. "He's a smuggler, not a creature." "Because of what he smuggles," Priya said, her voice a sibilant hiss that the translator smoothed into standard. "Novarian bioweapons are grown, not manufactured. They're semi-sentient organisms designed to infiltrate, infect, and destroy. If even one of his shipments gets loose, it could depopulate an entire station. He's transporting monsters, so we treat him like one." Olivia nodded slowly. "What's his pattern? Where does he operate?" "That's the problem," Rax said, gesturing to expand the hologram to show a star chart. "He has no pattern. He hits different sectors, different routes, always staying mobile. The only consistency is that he moves through asteroid fields and debris zones where sensor coverage is limited." "He's a Novarian," Olivia said, still studying the display. "What's their homeworld environment like?" Tix and Vex clicked in unison, surprised. "Why does that matter?" "Because behavior patterns are influenced by evolution and environment," Olivia explained, her dispatcher training kicking in. She'd learned to profile suspects based on background, environment, behavior. The species was different, but the principle was the same. If we understand what environment he's comfortable in, we can predict where he'll feel safe, where he'll hide, where he'll run. Rax pulled up additional information. Novaria Prime is mostly water with thousands of small islands. High gravity, dense atmosphere. The species evolved as aquatic ambush hunters before developing sapience. Olivia felt something click in her mind. So he's not just hiding in asteroid fields because of sensor coverage. He's hiding there because the 3-dimensional navigation through debris mimics swimming through kelp forests or coral reefs. It's instinctive. He feels safe there. "So?" Gorath asked. "We already knew he likes asteroid fields." "So we stop chasing him and start predicting him," Olivia said, her fingers moving across the display to highlight several locations on the star chart. "Look at these 3 fields where he was last spotted. They all have similar characteristics: high iron content debris, irregular orbital patterns, Close proximity to shipping lanes. If we map out every asteroid field in this sector with those same characteristics, we can narrow down his most likely hiding spots to maybe 5 or 6 locations instead of hundreds. Rax's ears perked forward. The Corvus field. It matches all those parameters, and it's centrally located for accessing multiple shipping routes. It's also the most dangerous field in the sector, Priya pointed out. The debris is highly unstable. Navigation is nearly impossible without constant course corrections. Which is exactly why he'd feel safe there, Olivia said. Everyone else thinks it's too dangerous, so nobody looks there properly. It's like hiding in the bad neighborhood because the cops don't patrol there as much. The human has a point, Tix said, Vex nodding in agreement. We've been reactive, following his trail. This approach is proactive. Rax studied Olivia for a long moment, his predator's eyes assessing her in a new light. All right, we'll try it your way. But if you're wrong, Fletcher, we'll have wasted time and resources. If I'm wrong, I'll file all your paperwork for a month, Olivia said, with a slight smile. Gorath barked a laugh despite himself. Now, that's a bet I can respect. The team spent the next 2 hours preparing for the operation. Olivia was issued standard field equipment, a vacuum-rated suit, a communications headset, a pulse pistol that felt heavy and foreign in her hands, and a personal shield generator. She watched training videos on weapon safety and basic combat tactics, while the rest of the team checked their gear with the casual efficiency of experienced hunters. They departed Station Gamma 9 aboard the team's ship, a modified patrol cruiser named the Relentless. It was designed for speed and maneuverability rather than comfort. The interior was all function and no form, with equipment lockers lining the walls and acceleration couches that could accommodate various body types. Olivia strapped herself into one of the human-sized couches and tried not to think about the fact that she was actually doing this. She was actually going on a field operation with the Monster Division. 6 months ago, she'd been organizing sensitivity training seminars and mediating disputes over break-room etiquette. Now she was hunting a dangerous smuggler through one of the most hazardous regions of space. She must be insane. This was absolutely insane. But it was also exciting in a way that paperwork had never been. The transit to the Corvus field took 6 hours at maximum burn. Rax piloted the ship himself, his clawed hands moving across the controls with practiced ease. Priya monitored sensors, her serpentine body coiled in the co-pilot's station. Gorath, Tix, Vex, and Olivia waited in the crew compartment, each preparing in their own way. Gorath sharpened his combat blades with long, deliberate strokes. The Vraxian hadn't spoken to Olivia since they'd left the station, but she occasionally caught him glancing in her direction, as if checking to make sure she was still there. Tix and Vex communicated in their native language, a series of clicks and chirps too rapid for the translator to parse. They were reviewing tactical formations on a shared data pad, their compound eyes processing information faster than Olivia could follow. Olivia spent the time reviewing everything she could find about Novarian psychology and behavior. If she was going to survive in this job, she needed to understand the beings they were hunting. Not just their abilities or their crimes, but what motivated them, what scared them, what mistakes they were likely to make under pressure. Approaching the Corvus field, Rax announced over the intercom, all personnel, secure for maneuvering. Olivia felt the ship's engines shift, the smooth burn transitioning to a series of rapid course corrections. Through the viewport, she could see the asteroid field spreading out before them like a frozen ocean. Chunks of rock and metal ranging from pebble-sized to mountain-sized tumbled through space in chaotic orbits, colliding and fragmenting in a constant dance of destruction. Sensors are being disrupted by the high iron content, Priya reported. We're effectively blind beyond visual range. Then we do this the old-fashioned way, Rax said. Visual sweep, grid by grid. Fletcher, you're with me on the bridge. The rest of you, monitor your stations and be ready for rapid deployment. Olivia unbuckled and made her way forward, using the handholds to navigate through the ship's narrow corridors. The bridge was cramped, designed for a crew of 2 at most. Rax gestured to a secondary station equipped with optical scanners. Your theory brought us here, he said. Now prove it was right. Those scanners can pick up heat signatures, reflected light, anything that doesn't belong in a dead asteroid field. If Slicks is here, his ship will have active systems. Find them. Olivia settled into the station and activated the scanners. The display showed a visual feed of the asteroid field overlaid with analysis data. She began scanning methodically, sector by sector, looking for anything that stood out. It was tedious work. Every few minutes, something would catch her eye, a bright reflection, an unusual heat signature, only to turn out to be natural phenomena or debris. But Olivia had spent 6 years staring at computer screens in Detroit, monitoring emergency channels, sorting signal from noise. This was just another variation of the same skill. 2 hours into the search, she found it. There, she said, highlighting a section of the display. That asteroid, the oblong one with the crater on the north face. There's a heat signature inside it. Faint, but definitely artificial. And look, at its orbit. It's too stable. Someone adjusted it. Rax leaned in, his yellow eyes narrowing as he studied the data. You're right. That's not natural. Priya, match that signature against known Novarian ship configurations. Confirmed, Priya said after a moment. Low confidence, but the thermal pattern is consistent with a Novarian scout ship in low power mode. That's him, Rax said with certainty. He hollowed out that asteroid and parked inside. Classic smuggler move. Fletcher, good work. Now we see if you're as good at catching monsters as you are at finding them. Rax maneuvered the Relentless closer, approaching the asteroid from an angle that would keep them out of direct visual line with the crater opening. When they were within docking range, he activated the ship's magnetic clamps and secured them to the asteroid's surface. Full tactical deployment, Rax ordered. Gorath and I will take point. Tix, Vex, you're on containment. Priya, rear guard. Fletcher, you stay with Priya and observe. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Everyone clear? A chorus of affirmatives came back. The team assembled in the airlock, checking weapons and seals one final time. Olivia's pulse pistol felt even heavier now, and her hands were sweating inside her gloves. She forced herself to breathe slowly, evenly, the way she'd been trained during high-stress calls in Detroit. The airlock cycled open, and they emerged onto the asteroid's surface. The artificial gravity generators on their suits kept them anchored as they moved across the rough terrain toward the crater opening. Rax and Gorath led the way, weapons raised, moving with the coordinated precision of hunters who'd worked together for years. Tix and Vex split off to flank positions, their bodies barely visible as they blended with the rocky surface. Priya and Olivia brought up the rear, moving slowly and carefully. The crater opened into a tunnel that had clearly been carved by tools rather than natural forces. Emergency lights flickered along the walls, casting eerie shadows. The tunnel descended at a steep angle, leading deep into the asteroid's interior. They found Slicks's ship in a cavern at the asteroid's core. It was a sleek vessel, all curves and smooth surfaces, designed for speed and stealth. Cargo containers were stacked nearby, and equipment was scattered around a makeshift living area. But there was no sign of Slicks himself. Spread out, Rax ordered. He's here somewhere. That's when Olivia noticed something wrong. The living area looked too neat, too staged. There was food laid out on a small table, as if someone had just stepped away for a moment. But the food was cold, and a thin layer of dust covered everything. "It's a trap," Olivia said suddenly. "He's not here. This is a decoy." "How can you possibly know that?" Gareth demanded. "Because I've seen this before. Suspects who know they're being hunted will set up decoy locations to waste our time while they escape. The food, the lived-in appearance, it's all theater. And look, the ship's engines are cold. They haven't been fired in days." "Then where is he?" Priya asked. Olivia's mind raced, pulling together everything she knew about Novarian psychology, smuggler tactics, and basic human intuition. "He's paranoid. He doesn't trust that even this location is safe. He has another hiding spot, somewhere even more secure. Somewhere we wouldn't think to look because we'd assume we already found his base." "There's another asteroid," Tix said suddenly. "Smaller one, orbiting this one in a tight pattern. We dismissed it as too small to hide a ship." "That's where he is," Olivia said with certainty. "Check it." Rax hesitated for only a moment before nodding. "Back to the ship. Now, move fast, but stay alert. If Fletcher's right, Slicks knows we're here, and he's already planning his exit." They sprinted back through the tunnel, and Olivia felt a surge of adrenaline that was different from fear. This was excitement. This was the thrill of the hunt. When they reached the Relentless, Rax punched the engines and swung around toward the smaller asteroid. As they approached, they saw a small ship detaching from its surface, engines flaring to life. "There!" Gorath roared. "He's running!" "Not for long," Rax growled. "Priya, target his engines. Disable, don't destroy. We need him alive." The chase was on, and Olivia Fletcher realized that her old life in human resources was truly and completely over. She was a hunter now, and she was just getting started. The Relentless surged forward as Slicks's ship darted between asteroids with desperate speed. Olivia gripped her seat restraints as the ship bucked and weaved through the debris field. Rax's clawed hands dancing across the controls with lethal precision. "He's heading for the dense cluster," Priya reported from her station, her scales shifting to an anxious orange. "If he gets in there, we'll lose him in the sensor interference." "Not happening," Rax snarled, pushing the engines harder. The ship groaned in protest, but responded. "Priya, fire!" A concentrated pulse beam lanced out from the Relentless, missing Slicks's ship by mere meters as the Novarian pilot executed a barrel roll that would have liquefied most organic beings. The smuggler was good, frighteningly good, and he knew this field like the back of his scaled appendages. "He's toying with us," Gorath rumbled, frustration evident in his voice. "Playing games." Olivia watched the pursuit unfold on her monitor, her dispatcher instincts analyzing patterns in the chaos. Slicks wasn't just running randomly. Every turn, every dodge served a purpose. He was leading them somewhere specific. "Pull back," Olivia said suddenly. "Commander, pull back now." "What?" Rax's ears flattened against his skull. "We almost have him." "It's an ambush. Look at his flight path. He's not trying to escape. He's hurting us. Every time we fire, he dodges in a direction that keeps us following a specific route. He's leading us into something." Rax's eyes narrowed, his predator brain catching up to what Olivia's analytical mind had already processed. He yanked the controls hard to port just as they entered a narrow canyon between two massive asteroids. The explosion that followed would have vaporized them if they'd been 3 seconds slower. A chain of remotely detonated mines erupted along the canyon walls, sending shrapnel screaming through space. The Relentless's shields flared blue-white as debris hammered against them, alarms shrieking throughout the ship. Rax fought the controls as a chunk of superheated metal punched through their port shield generator. "Shields at 40%, Priya reported, her voice steady despite the crisis. "Hull breach in Section 3, sealing now." "I'll kill him," Gorath roared, slamming his fist against a bulkhead hard enough to dent it. "I'll rip his scales off one by one." "Get in line," Rax growled. He stabilized their flight and scanned for Slix's ship. The Novarian had used the explosion as cover to reverse course, now burning hard back toward the outer edge of the field. "He's trying to reach open space. If he makes it to jump range, we'll never find him again." "Can we intercept?" Olivia asked. "Not with our damaged engines. He's going to make it." Rax's voice carried the bitter taste of defeat. Olivia stared at her screen, watching the distance between the ships grow. Her old life had been about managing crises, finding solutions when everyone else saw only problems. She'd talked down suicidal callers, coordinated responses to mass casualty events, found needles in haystacks when lives depended on it. This was just another problem that needed an unconventional solution. "What if we don't chase him?" she said quietly. "Explain," Rax demanded, not taking his eyes off his instruments. "He thinks he won. He thinks we're crippled and can't follow. So he'll drop his guard, fall into routine behaviors. Where does a Novarian smuggler go after a close call? Not to another hiding spot. He knows we found those. He goes somewhere he can get repairs, resupply, and disappear into a crowd." "The Terminus Market," Priya said immediately, understanding dawning in her serpentine eyes. "It's the only major black market hub within 2 days' travel from here. No questions asked, no scans, no security cooperation with authorities. It's also got a population of 10,000 criminals and lowlifes," Gorath pointed out. "Finding one Novarian in that cesspool would be impossible." "Not if we're waiting for him when he arrives," Olivia countered. "He doesn't know we can predict where he's going. We repair our ship, beat him there, and set up surveillance. When he shows his face, we take him down in a controlled environment instead of chasing him through asteroid fields." Rax's tail twitched, the Thoraxian equivalent of a thoughtful pause. "It's risky. If we're wrong about his destination, we lose him completely." "I'm not wrong," Olivia said with more confidence than she felt. "I've tracked hundreds of suspects. They all fall into patterns when they think they're safe. Slix is confident right now, feeling clever. He'll make the predictable choice." "The human's logic is sound," Tix said, Vex clicking in agreement. "Our current approach has failed. We should adapt." Rax studied Olivia for a long moment, those predatory yellow eyes seeming to weigh her soul. Then he nodded once, sharply. "We do it Fletcher's way. Priya, set course for Terminus Market, and someone get engineering crews working on those shields. If we're walking into that den of thieves, I want every advantage we can get." The Terminus Market existed in a legal gray zone, occupying a massive converted mining station in neutral space where no single government held jurisdiction. It had started as a legitimate trading post 3 centuries ago, but had gradually evolved into the galaxy's premier destination for anyone wanting to buy or sell anything without bureaucratic interference, which meant it was a haven for smugglers, pirates, black market dealers, and worse. The Relentless limped into the station's public docking bay 18 hours later, sporting hastily patched hull plates and jury-rigged shield generators. They'd beaten Slix there by at least 6 hours, assuming Olivia's prediction was correct. "Remember," Rax briefed the team as they prepared to disembark, "we're civilians here. Security on Terminus doesn't care what we do as long as we don't start shooting. Our badges mean nothing. We're on our own." Sounds like home, Gorath said with a predatory grin. They split into two groups to avoid attention. Rax, Priya, and Olivia would position themselves near the main market plaza, where new arrivals typically went to conduct business. Gorath, Tix, and Vex would monitor the docking bays for Slix's ship. The market itself was a sensory assault. Thousands of beings from hundreds of species crowded the corridors, hawking everything from legitimate goods to items so illegal Olivia couldn't even identify them. The air was thick with competing smells, chemicals, cooking food, and things she preferred not to contemplate. Languages mixed into an incomprehensible babble that even her translators struggled to parse. "Stay close," Rax murmured as they navigated through the crowd. His hand rested casually near his concealed weapon. "This place can turn violent without warning." They found a cantina with a good view of the plaza's main entrance and settled in to wait. Priya ordered something that looked like it might have been food at some point, but had evolved beyond recognition. Rax kept his eyes constantly moving, scanning faces and body language. Olivia tried to blend in, which was difficult since humans were relatively uncommon, this far from Earth-controlled space. Hours crawled past. Olivia nursed a drink that tasted like industrial solvent mixed with fruit juice and fought against the creeping doubt. What if she was wrong? What if Slix had gone somewhere else entirely? What if he'd had a backup plan they hadn't anticipated? "Contact!" Gorath's voice crackled through their concealed communicators. "Novarian ship just docked. It's him." Olivia felt her heart rate spike. "Where's he heading?" "Looks like the main plaza. He's moving casual, no apparent concern. Wait, he's got company. 3 other beings. Looks like hired muscle. This might get complicated." Rax's ears perked forward. "We stick to the plan. Wait for him to settle into business, then we take him. Clean and quiet." 20 minutes later, Slix entered the cantina. The Novarian moved with the fluid grace of his species, his sleek, scaled body sliding between tables as he made his way to a booth in the back. His 3 companions were a mixed group, a hulking Kragath enforcer, a twitchy Selkian tech specialist, and something that looked like an animated pile of rocks, but was probably a golem mercenary. "He's meeting someone," Priya observed. "Probably his buyer for the bioweapons." Sure enough, another being joined them moments later. This one was a Zenthari merchant, identifiable by the elaborate tattoos covering her gray skin. Money and data chips changed hands. Slix seemed relaxed, even pleased with himself. "We should move now," Gorath urged over the comm, "before the deal completes." "Negative," Olivia said, surprising herself with her certainty. "If we grab him now, we don't get the buyer or the weapons. We need to follow the buyer to the exchange point." "Fletcher's right," Rax said after a pause. "This is bigger than one smuggler. We let this play out." The meeting concluded after another 20 minutes. Slix and his crew departed first, heading deeper into the market. The Zenthari buyer left shortly after, moving in a different direction. "Split again," Rax ordered. "Gorath, you and the scouts follow Slix. Don't engage, just track. Priya, you're with the buyer. Fletcher and I will coordinate." "Commander, I should go with Gorath's team," Olivia said quickly. "Slix knows your species. He'll spot a Thoraxian following him. But humans are common enough that I won't trigger his instincts." Rax's jaw tightened, clearly not liking the idea of sending his newest and least experienced team member into danger. But Olivia was right, and they both knew it. "Fine, but you follow Gorath's lead. Do not engage. Do not take risks. Observe and report only. Clear?" "Clear." Olivia slipped out of the cantina and caught up with Gorath, Tix, and Vex in a side corridor. The Vraxian looked at her with something that might have been respect or concern, possibly both. "Stay behind me," he rumbled. "If shooting starts, you run. Understand?" "Understood." They followed Slicks through the market's labyrinthine passages, staying far enough back to avoid detection, but close enough to maintain visual contact. The smuggler seemed completely at ease, stopping occasionally to examine goods at various stalls, laughing with his companions. "He thinks he's invincible," Olivia murmured. "He outsmarted us once, and now he's overconfident." "Good," Gorath said. "Overconfidence makes prey careless." Slicks eventually led them to a warehouse district in the station's industrial sector. The crowds thinned here, making surveillance more difficult. They had to hang back further, risking losing him. "I don't like this," Tix clicked. "Too exposed, too quiet." They were right to be worried. As they rounded a corner, they found themselves face to face with Slicks's Kragath enforcer. The creature was massive, easily 9 feet tall and 500 pounds of muscle and bad attitude. It roared something incomprehensible and charged. Gorath met it head-on with a roar of his own. The two titans collided with a sound like starships crashing, immediately locked in brutal combat. Tix and Vex scattered, trying to flank, but the Selkian tech specialist appeared from a side passage wielding some kind of energy whip that crackled with electricity. Olivia found herself backing up as the golem mercenary materialized from what she'd thought was just a pile of crates. It moved with surprising speed for something made of animated stone, its boulder like fists raised to crush. Her training screamed at her to run, to call for backup, to let the experienced fighters handle it. But running meant abandoning her team. And Olivia Fletcher had never abandoned anyone who needed her. Not in 6 years of dispatch work, and she wasn't starting now. The golem swung at her with a fist that could pulverize concrete. Olivia threw herself to the side, her smaller size and human agility letting her dodge what she couldn't match in strength. She pulled her pulse pistol and fired, the bolts splashing harmlessly off the creature's rocky hide. "Weak human!" the golem rumbled in a voice like grinding stones. "You die now." "Not today," Olivia gasped, scrambling backward as it advanced. She couldn't hurt it, couldn't outrun it, couldn't match it, so she had to outthink it. Olivia's eyes scanned the corridor desperately. They were in the industrial sector. That meant machinery, power conduits, infrastructure. And infrastructure meant vulnerabilities. She spotted it above the golem's head, a heavy cargo container suspended from ceiling tracks held by magnetic clamps. Emergency release controls were mounted on the nearby wall. Olivia ran straight at the golem. The creature, surprised by this suicidal charge, swung both fists down in a hammer blow that would have flattened her. But Olivia slid beneath its legs at the last second, a move she'd seen baseball players do 1,000 times, and slammed her hand against the emergency release. The cargo container, easily 3 tons of metal and contents, dropped directly onto the golem. The creature had just enough time to look up before it was buried under the impact. The crash echoed through the corridor like thunder. Olivia scrambled to her feet, breathing hard, and keyed her comm. "Rax, we're compromised. Warehouse District, Sector 12. Need backup now." "On our way," Rax's voice came back immediately. "Hold position." But holding position wasn't an option. Gorath was still trading bone-crushing blows with the Kragath, both warriors bleeding from multiple wounds. Tix had been caught by the energy whip and was convulsing on the ground while Vex tried desperately to help. And somewhere nearby, Slicks was probably making his escape. Olivia made a decision. She ran past the fighting, ducking under a wild swing from the Kragath, and sprinted toward the warehouse Slicks had been heading for. The building was a converted cargo bay, its main door slightly ajar. Olivia slipped inside, pulse pistol raised, and immediately wished she'd waited for backup. The warehouse was full of containers, dozens of them, each marked with biohazard symbols. The bioweapons shipment. Enough illegal organisms to wipe out entire populations if they were released. And in the center of it all stood SCIFI, calmly uploading data to a portable terminal while the Zenthari buyers supervised the loading of containers onto an anti-grav sled. "Well, well," SCIFI said, his translator rendering his hissing speech into amused standard. "The little human from the ship. You're more persistent than I expected, and stupider. You're alone, yes? Your team is busy with my associates." "You're under arrest," Olivia said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Galactic Security Corps. Put down the terminal and step away from the containers." Both SCIFI and the Zenthari laughed, a sound like breaking glass mixed with strangled coughing. "Arrest me? Here?" SCIFI's elongated snout split in what passed for a smile among his kind. "This is Terminus, human. Your laws don't apply. And even if they did, what will you do? Shoot me? In a warehouse full of volatile bioweapons? One stray shot, and we all die along with half this station." He was right. Olivia's finger trembled on the trigger, but she couldn't risk it. The containers were clearly marked as unstable, designed to breach easily upon reaching their destination. A weapon's discharge could rupture one, and then the nightmare would begin. "Smart human," SCIFI continued, moving slowly toward a side exit. "You figured out my patterns. Found me when better hunters couldn't. But you're still just prey pretending to be predator. Let me leave, and you get to live. Try to stop me, and everyone dies. Simple mathematics." Olivia's mind raced through options. She couldn't shoot, couldn't let him escape, couldn't call for backup without alerting him. She was alone, outgunned, facing an enemy who held all the cards. So she did what humans do best. She improvised. "You're right," Olivia said, slowly lowering her pistol. "I can't stop you, but I can make you an offer." SCIFI paused, curiosity overriding his caution. "An offer?" "Those containers. Your buyer is paying you what? 50,000 credits per unit? Maybe 100,000? 70. 5,000, the Zenthari said before SCIFI could stop her. "Right. So about 4 million credits total for the whole shipment. Not bad for a smuggler." Olivia took a slow step forward, keeping her hands visible. "But what if I told you I know someone who would pay triple that? 20 million credits for the whole lot, no questions asked." "Lying," SCIFI hissed, but his body language showed interest. Greed was universal across species. "Am I? You know about humans, SCIFI. You know what we're famous for? We're the galaxy's best middlemen. We connect buyers and sellers. We know everyone. We deal with everyone. And I happen to know a certain weapons collector who's been looking for Novarian bioweapons for years." Olivia was making this up as she went, pulling from every crime drama she'd ever watched, every negotiation she'd ever handled. "But he only deals through trusted intermediaries, through me." "Why would you help me?" SCIFI asked, suspicious but tempted. "You're Security Corps." "I was Security Corps, past tense. You think they pay me enough to risk my life chasing maniacs like you through asteroid fields? I'm done, ready to cash out. This could be my retirement fund, yours too. We split the profit. Everyone wins." The Zenthari buyer's tattoos flushed an angry red. "We have a deal." "We have a better deal now," Olivia said coldly. "Unless you want to match 20 million? The buyer sputtered, but fell silent. She clearly didn't have that kind of money. SCIFI's eyes narrowed to slits as he studied Olivia. His tongue flicked out, tasting the air the way his species did when evaluating threats. She could see him calculating, weighing the risks against the potential reward. "Show me proof," he finally said. "This buyer of yours. Contact him now." This was the moment everything could collapse. Olivia didn't have a buyer, didn't have a plan beyond keeping Slicks talking until backup arrived, but she'd learned in dispatch that confidence could be more powerful than truth. She pulled out her communicator and made a show of switching to a private encrypted channel. Then she turned slightly away, as if speaking to someone only she could hear. "Yes, it's me. I have them. All 56 containers. I need confirmation on the price before I proceed." She paused, pretending to listen. "No, that's not acceptable. 20 million or I walk. There are other interested parties." Another pause. "Fine. Agreed. I'll send you the coordinates." Olivia turned back to Slicks, her heart hammering so hard she thought it might break through her ribs. "Done. He'll transfer half the credits now as a deposit, the rest on delivery." "Transfer to my account," Slicks said, rattling off a long string of numbers. "When I see the credits, we talk about delivery." Olivia's mind went blank. She had no way to transfer credits she didn't have to an account for a fake buyer. She'd talked herself into a corner. In seconds, Slicks would realize she was bluffing, and then she'd die, along with half the station. That's when Rax's voice filled the warehouse, amplified and commanding. "Or you could surrender now and live." The Thoraxian commander stood in the main doorway, Priya coiled beside him, both with weapons aimed at Slicks. Gorath emerged from a side entrance, battered but functional, with Tix and Vex flanking him. The warehouse was surrounded. Slicks looked at Olivia with something between fury and admiration. "You were stalling." "I was negotiating," Olivia corrected. "You should have taken the first deal." The smuggler moved faster than Olivia thought possible. His hand darted to a control panel on the nearest container, and a light began blinking red. "Nobody moves," Slicks hissed, "or I trigger the release sequence. Every container in this warehouse opens simultaneously. The bioweapons will be airborne in seconds. Everyone on this station dies within minutes. Your call, Hunter." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Rax's ears went flat against his skull, a sign of extreme stress. Priya's scales shifted to a sickly yellow. They were at an impasse. "You won't do it," Olivia said quietly. "You'll die, too. I'm Novarian. We evolved in toxic environments. These bioweapons will kill me eventually, but I'll last hours while you all drop in minutes. I'll have time to reach my ship and evacuate. Everyone else becomes collateral damage." His finger hovered over the trigger. "So, back away. Let me leave. Or we all discover what dissolved organs feel like." Olivia looked at her team, saw the calculation in their eyes. They were trained hunters, experienced warriors, but they were also pragmatists. Some battles couldn't be won by force. "There's a third option," Olivia said. "I'm listening," Slicks said, though his finger didn't move from the trigger. "You're right that you'll survive longer than us, but you're wrong about reaching your ship. Commander Rax, what's the protocol for bioweapon containment on Terminus Station?" Rax caught on immediately. "Full lockdown. All airlocks seal automatically. No ships can launch. Anyone attempting to leave is terminated on site by automated defenses." "So, even if we all die," Olivia continued, "you'll be trapped here, slowly dying from your own weapons with nowhere to run. Is that really how you want to end? Alone in a sealed station, gradually liquefying from the inside out?" Slicks's hand trembled slightly. "I'll find a way out." "Will you? Against automated systems? Good luck with that." Olivia took a step forward, ignoring Rax's warning growl. "Or you could surrender. Face trial. Spend time in prison. Sure. But you'll be alive. You'll have a future. Maybe you'll even cut a deal. Testify against bigger fish. Reduce your sentence. But if you push that button, your only future is a slow, agonizing death in a tomb of your own making. The silence stretched. Olivia could hear her own heartbeat in her ears, could see the calculations running behind Slicks's eyes. He was a survivor, a smuggler who'd stayed one step ahead of the law for years. Would he gamble everything on one last desperate play? His hand moved away from the trigger. Smart choice, Olivia breathed out, not realizing she'd been holding her breath. Goreth moved with shocking speed for his size, crossing the warehouse and restraining Slicks before the Novarian could change his mind. Priya secured the Zenthari buyer, while Tix and Vex began carefully safeguarding the bioweapon containers. Rax approached Olivia, studying her with those predatory yellow eyes. That was either the bravest or most foolish thing I've ever seen. Possibly both. It worked, didn't it? Olivia said, trying to keep her knees from buckling now that the adrenaline was wearing off. It worked, Rax agreed. You talked down a cornered smuggler who was ready to commit mass murder. You improvised a negotiation that kept him engaged until backup arrived, and you understood his psychology well enough to find the argument that would make him surrender. The Thoraxian's lips pulled back, showing teeth. That's not luck. That's skill. It's what I did in Detroit, Olivia said simply. Talk people down, find solutions, adapt to impossible situations. Welcome to the Monster Division, Fletcher, Rax said. You're not an administrator anymore. 6 months later, Olivia stood in Commander Kelvin's office once again. The recruitment officer looked even more surprised than he had at their first meeting. Your performance reviews are remarkable, Kelvin said, scrolling through data on his slate. 12 successful operations, 7 high-value captures, 0 casualties to your team. Commander Rax says you're one of the best tactical analysts he's ever worked with. Thank you, sir. He's also requesting that you be promoted to full agent status and given your own team to lead. Kelvin set down his slate and fixed her with all 4 of his eyes. 6 months ago, I approved your transfer thinking you'd wash out or die within weeks. I was wrong. You've proven that humans have something we often overlook in favor of physical strength and natural weapons. What's that, sir? The ability to understand monsters without becoming one. The capacity to think like prey and predator simultaneously. And the willingness to walk into danger armed with nothing but clever words and stubborn courage. He pushed a data chip across his desk. Your new assignment, Team 42. They handle the weird cases, the ones that don't fit standard categories. Criminals who are too strange or unpredictable for conventional tactics. Olivia picked up the chip, feeling its weight in her palm. Sounds perfect. I thought you'd say that. Kelvin's mandibles clicked in what she'd learned was amusement. One more thing, Fletcher. That stunt you pulled in the warehouse, the fake buyer negotiation, that was completely improvised? Yes, sir. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. He waved a dismissive appendage. Dismissed, Agent Fletcher. Try not to give your new team too many heart attacks. Olivia walked out of the office and through the halls of Monster Division headquarters, no longer the uncertain administrator who'd arrived half a year ago. She'd found her place among the hunters. Not by being the strongest or the fastest or the most dangerous, but by being human, by being adaptable, by being the person who could look at an impossible situation and find the third option nobody else had considered. The galaxy was full of monsters, but Olivia Fletcher had learned something the monsters were still figuring out. Sometimes the scariest predator in the room is the one who doesn't look dangerous at all. She smiled as she headed to meet her new team, ready for whatever weird and wonderful horrors the universe had waiting. After all, she'd spent 6 years handling emergencies in Detroit. How much stranger could alien monsters really be?